Okay, Charles, how you doing? I've got your work up here. Thank you so much for submitting and for this written description summarizing your approach to the assignment. Now, there's one thing I want to address here. As you said there, you're not impressed with the font and would like to make some changes there. Unfortunately, that's not an option, as the font requirements are included in the style guide from the client. As you move through your student design career and into your professional career, this is a very, very common occurrence where the designer has restrictions placed on them based on preference of the client. And after all, as a designer, you are the voice of the client. So if the client has type requirements, that's something that you're bound to, whether you think that you can make more creative or expressive type choices. At that point, once the client says, I want this typeface, that's it. I mean, you have to use that typeface, whether you think it's the most creative or expressive typeface. That is at the point the client says, I want this typeface, and this is one of the requirements set forth in the style guide, no longer is it relevant what the designer thinks could be more effective, okay? And this is a perfect case of that. And again, this is a perfect, this has real world ties, as this is a very common occurrence where there are restrictions placed on a designer based on the style guide restrictions and limitations of the client. Okay, that said, so we can't change the type. All right, so let's go ahead and jump. I've got the piece open right here. I want to talk about it. So, Charles, I do not recommend this approach, and let me describe why. First of all, let me start by saying you're showing outstanding proficiency in the background image is adjusted beautifully, just gorgeous. The tonal distribution and the color range here is gorgeous. The masked image, the masking is done quite effectively, showing outstanding proficiency there. Great job placing the logo and great job with your type. So you're pointing to extreme proficiency. However, in terms of the effectiveness of the layout as it relates to the elements and principles of design, this is a piece that I highly recommend not pursuing. And the reason is because the image is it's on a diagonal. It seems to be like it's rotated to fit the size of the ad. This causes an enormous amount of uncomfortable visual tension. Now, quite often in design projects, if you have a background image where, okay, just watch my cursor for a second. You know what, actually, let me show you an example. Okay, so an image like this, okay, let's say this image were crooked a little bit and the horizon was just a little bit off in terms of being perfectly level. Okay, so let's say it's just a little bit on a diagonal. Now that creates uncomfortable visual attention. The viewer looks at it, realizes the horizon is not level, and becomes extremely, almost agitated. Whether that agitation and that uncomfortable feeling is conscious or subconscious, regardless, it is still there. This is to the point where this is consciously creating some uncomfortable, an enormous amount of uncomfortable visual tension based on the fact that it's just, I mean, we see the horizon here, it's almost vertical. So this is a problem. And as I said, if you want to pursue this approach, please feel free. If you think this is an effective way to go, please feel free to pursue this approach. Again, though, I highly do not recommend this approach. It won't play well in a portfolio, and it doesn't point to, as a designer, it doesn't point to the designer's knowledge of elements and principles of design as they relate to comfortable composition. Okay, that said, everything else is great. The masked image is great, the logo is great, contact information, typography. I'm not crazy about the typeset here. I think it's really, really difficult to ascertain the reading based on this type wrap here and this kind of really unusual gapping and spacing right here. So my recommendation is this. I highly recommend you approach this as more of a traditional design, magazine design, which the reason we do this is to increase the visual and typographic hierarchy. So the viewer knows exactly where to look first, where to look second, where to look third, and where to exit the composition. This formula is outstanding because it provides outstanding, and we see this formula over and over. The formula is this: headline, subhead, paragraph or two of body copy, masked image, contact information, logo. Okay, and then we see that over and over in these examples. And I'd like you to jump out here and take a look at these examples in the announcement so you can really see how effective this is in terms of creating visual harmony and a visual and typographic hierarchy. So my recommendation for you is to if you can crop this image, if you can rotate this image, if there's enough information in this image where you can crop it 8 by 10 while it's on its horizontal axis, if you can crop it 8 by 10, it's a great image to use. But if there's not enough room to crop as such, I would recommend finding a different background image. The formula, again, I would say background image, headline, Arial bold, subhead, Arial bold italic, paragraph of body copy describing the promotion, then your masked image, your contact information, and your logo. So again, I just really encourage you to go out to the announcements area and take a look at all of these examples. They're included here because they're all extremely effective, and they all point to outstanding page mechanics, outstanding hierarchy, and a good understanding of the elements and principles of design. Okay, so those are my recommendations, Charles. As I said, if you're showing proficiency, so if you think this is an effective way to go, please feel free to pursue this direction. However, I recommend following those earlier comments. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. But keep with this, okay? Because I'd like to see those changes made relatively quickly because we have to start working on the banner ad. And the banner ad, of course, is based on the magazine ad. So in a perfect world, the magazine ad is done, ready, accepted, and ready to roll before you start the banner ad. So keep that in mind. If you want to repost here, have at it. Definitely, I'll be glad to take a look at it and provide further comments. But at any rate, I'd like to see those changes reflected in your final campaign magazine ad that's due here coming up in a couple of weeks. But as I said, I'd like to see it before you move into your banner ad. So if you have any questions at all, please let me know. Thank you very much.